This is really embarrassing for me, but as we're talking about anxiety, I will share it. What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time seeing me, hello, my name is Rachel and I am a registered dental hygienist, and I have been getting a ton of messages and comments asking me how I manage my anxiety or how I'm able to be a dental hygienist while I have anxiety. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking more about that. So I think like the number one fear that everyone has like across the board is probably public speaking. And I think I would rather do just about anything than give a speech to a whole crowd of people that I do not know. While I was in college, I had to do a public speaking class and do several different types of speeches in front of a class full of strangers that I didn't know. Now at the beginning of this class, obviously it was absolutely horrifying and I hated it because every single time I stood up, my face was beet red, my heart was pounding, I was sweating, and I was incredibly nervous. By the end of this class, I was so happy that I had to take it because it was very helpful. And I think for me that the biggest thing that helps with the public speaking is doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it. Because you have to remember that when you're working as a dental hygienist, you are the expert in the situation. So for example, whenever you have a child that you take back into your operatory and you're working on the child, and then say maybe their hygiene is really bad and maybe they even have some cavities. That is not a fun conversation to always have with their parents, especially if the parents are very defensive. So always just try to be as polite and courteous as you can in these situations, but remember, like I said, you are the expert and you are there to help them. When I first started working as a dental hygienist, I got so nervous if I had to go out in the waiting room and talk to the parents in front of everyone else that's in the waiting room. And I found that one thing that helps me feel a lot more comfortable, and probably the patients as well, is to kind of motion for them to come outside of the waiting room so that you can talk to them in a more private setting, because not the entire waiting room is able to hear what you're saying, and you're able to just focus on one person versus having multiple people looking at you. Now another thing is new patients, or whenever you're just starting out in office, obviously you don't know who any of the patients are. Once you're there for a while, you obviously build a rapport with people and you remember them and you're excited to see them and you remember things about them and they're more comfortable with you now and you are now more comfortable with them. But when you're first starting out and you get new patients, it is very scary because you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You could have a really nice positive person, you could have a really mean person, you could have a very pain in the butt type of person. You just don't know, and it's very hard to prepare for that, let alone personality wise. But you also have to wonder, okay, well, have they had their teeth cleaned in the last 6 months? Has it been 60 years? So one thing that I do to help myself with the situation is to mentally always prepare for the worst. I'm not saying this is probably the best thing in the world to do, but it's just something that I personally do and probably most situations in my life. So I try to prepare myself for worst case scenario. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to go out there, let's say we're going to bring Sarah back, and I bring Sarah back, and in my head I'm like, okay, well maybe this is going to be a disaster, maybe she's not going to be very nice, she's not going to be very comfortable, blah 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 blah. So I'm mentally prepared for that. I bring Sarah back, and if she is like that, cool, I'm prepared, I'm mentally prepared for that. But if she's not, and she's like that super nice patient or just very willing to learn and willing to change, then it's really nice because you prepared for this and you really only got this. You just have to remember that as a dental hygienist, most people aren't going to like you in general because they don't like your job. And it's very important, I think, to remember to not take it personal, because when I first started practicing, I remember I took it very personal because I'm trying so hard to make my patients feel comfortable and to make them feel happy and to let them know that I really do care about them and I want them to be as healthy as they possibly can be. But at the end of the day, most people aren't excited to come. When they come in, and sometimes they're very snippy and short and mean and rude with you, they will even tell you, I hate coming here, I hate the dentist. Okay, if that's the case, do your best to not take it personal. Kill them with kindness, try to make them feel comfortable, and kind of try to pick up on the vibe that they give you. So some patients want you to talk them through everything to help them feel more relaxed, which in return obviously makes you feel more relaxed. And other patients just want you to get it done and get it over with and get out of there. So That's personally how I judge every situation with that, is I kind of follow their lead. Since I'm the one who's in my familiar situation, they're outside their comfort zone. What kind of pace do they want to set for me to follow? Another thing that happens is that patients will question you a lot. So whether it's just about, oh, how old are you? Or you look too young to be doing this, or what's your real job? Because a lot of patients don't understand that we make really good money as a dental hygienist, and yes, we do go to school for it. But again, some people just don't know and don't take it personal if people ask you questions like this. A lot of patients will question what you're doing and why you're doing it and how come they have to do it and why does it have to be this way, why does it have to be that way. Educate, 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 because you would be surprised at how many things people will be upset or angry about. But then when you explain to them the reasoning or why it has to be a certain way, it's very surprising how they react to that because they really just didn't know. Maybe they were uneducated, or they had the wrong idea, or they were told something by so-and-so's friend who had this done and this was their experience. Not everyone's experience is ever going to be the same, regardless of what you do in life. As a hygienist, you have to be prepared to have some uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And that's not always fun because I don't know about any of you, but I don't like to be the bad guy. And I always feel guilty when I have to tell patients, hey, I'm sorry, but we're going over your treatment plan. You have 12 cavities, you need a root canal, you need 3 crowns, blah, 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 blah. And they're looking at me like, well, what am I doing wrong? Some people are very receptive to the information that you give them and they really appreciate it and just run with it. Other people will get very defensive. So simply just taking time to talk to them and explain things makes a big difference. And if they take it in a bad way or they get super defensive and, oh, well, I do this, I don't need to do that, I know myself, and they do know themselves better than I will ever know them. But again, don't take things personally. You're there to do your job. You're there to educate them. I heard a quote a couple years ago that said, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. If I got upset every single time a patient got upset about what I had to tell them, I would be miserable at work all the time. I would be anxious at work all the time. You are there to help them and to educate them, and that's all you can do. What they do with that information is on them. You cannot control how someone feels about something that you have to tell them. Another thing is, I don't think, unless you're in the field, you don't understand how much we are under pressure all the time, every single day, for time. We are constantly on the clock under pressure. And working under pressure is very stressful, and you have to really learn how to manage your time very quickly, or else you are going to be extremely anxious because you are going to be completely overwhelmed. And I do have a video talking about managing your time as a dental hygienist, so I will link that up at the top if you guys haven't seen that yet. But learning to manage my time as a dental hygienist has made a huge difference on how relaxed I'm able to be. When I first started practicing as a hygienist, I actually had a little clock that I would keep behind me, like behind the patient's head. And I would always remember what time my next patient was going to be coming so that I was finished within enough time that I would be able to do my exam, talk to the patient about the treatment, give them their goodie bag, write the chart notes, flip my room, and be ready for the next patient. Because otherwise you lose track of what time it is and you can be going way over patients or not spending enough time with patients or whatever, but just having that little reminder that I could just peek at real quick just to check on how I was doing. Whatever it is, learn to manage your time. Another thing is learning to just have confidence in yourself, which is not always easy to do, but being confident in your ability, being confident that you know what you're doing, being confident that you are the expert that you were educated to be. The more you second guess yourself or have to question things or think about things, the more time you are going to be wasting. And you already have a very limited amount of time with every single patient. You don't have time for that, because if you're doing that, you are going to be extremely anxious by stressing yourself out. I think a quality of every hygienist I've ever met is that we're very OCD and we are very much perfectionists. that was one thing that I had to learn the hard way to get over really, really fast, because unfortunately the reality is we're not miracle workers, and not every single patient is going to leave the operatory perfect, the exact way that we want them to be. It is what it is. We have to be okay with our best that we can possibly do is good enough, and at the end of the day, they are better off than when they were when they first walked in. The first office that I started practicing in, I think it was like maybe 2 months in since I graduated hygiene school, I was working on this patient who had a ton of calculus buildup, and I didn't have a Cavitron at this office. I know. And I was hand scaling, and this patient was going out of town for I think like 9 to 12 months. But I was so stressed out because I wanted this patient to leave perfect, because they were going to be gone for such a long time. And instead of just doing half of their mouth now and bringing them back for a second appointment to do the other half, I tried to get their entire mouth done in that one appointment. And what ended up happening is I got so stressed out about this one patient and focused on, oh my gosh, it has to be perfect, I have to get this done, that I went over my appointment time and completely used up the whole appointment time after that patient. So I used up 2 full appointment times. And luckily, the patient after them was a very close friend of the doctor that I was working for at the time, so they weren't upset about it, they understood, and they came back a couple weeks later. But I had to learn that the hard way, because that is not okay. You can't take up other patients' time just because you want to be a perfectionist. You have to learn how to manage your time. Again, it is so important. There's nothing wrong with telling the patient, hey, I want to do a really good job with you. I want to be really happy with your results, but unfortunately there's just so much that I'm not going to be able to completely finish you today. Would it be okay with you if you come back, in a week or so, whenever it's convenient for you, to do the other side, so that way we're not leaving a whole lot of buildup behind? And I can tell you from my experience, every single patient that I've had to do that with has been completely fine with it. I haven't had to do it very much, but when it happens, don't be afraid to say something. If they say no, again, that's on them, but at least you're giving them the option and you're being honest with them. So that way you don't have that guilt, you don't have that pressure, and again, the anxiety goes down. Another thing is not forgetting anything. We have so much that is expected of us and not very much time to do it in. So the more that you are able to get a routine down, I think is the best thing, at least for myself, that I was able to do. As long as I follow my routine, I know exactly what needs to happen next. I know exactly how much time I have for this, exactly how much time I have for this, exactly how much time I have for this. And if for some reason, some of those time slots are a little bit shorter than what I expect it to be, great, I have extra time. Even with your chart notes, you have to be really thorough. You have to make sure you don't forget anything, because legally, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. This is really embarrassing for me, but because we're talking about anxiety, I will share it. When I was in hygiene school, and I would say for probably the first 2 years that I started practicing in private practice, I wore a long sleeve shirt underneath my scrubs, which is normal. But what I would do is I would roll up the sleeves and do a huge ball and tuck it underneath my sleeve. So like my sleeves are super puffed out, and that way when I was sweating, it could soak up all the sweat that I had. That's how much I would sweat, and that's how anxious I would be for every single patient. And you can probably see in old pictures, my sleeves were always huge and puffed out. Otherwise, I'd have like a huge sweat stain, sweat running down my arms. It was bad. So some of the things in general that I do to help with my anxiety is, on my way to work, I will do breathing exercises. And I will make sure I'm taking time to take deep breaths in and hold it, and then take deep breaths out and hold it, just to kind of calm myself down and relax myself. And I also would take a peppermint lotion and I would rub it right here underneath my nose, and I would also rub it on my stomach to kind of help, again, make sure that I was breathing in something that was calming. And again, on my stomach, I don't know if it ever actually really helped or not, but it made me feel more comfortable by doing it. But then, even while you're at work, focus on just your breathing whenever you're working on a patient, because you're going to be like super uptight, and that's going to make you in more pain than you're already going to be in anyways. The more relaxed I am, the less back pain and shoulder pain that I have because I don't have as much tension all throughout my body. Honestly, being a dental hygienist, it kind of requires a little bit of an outgoing personality because you are talking to people and strangers all the time and put in a lot of uncomfortable, stressful, time-sensitive situations. I mean, I'm an introvert myself, but I've been able to manage it and it really hasn't been too bad because I'm able to manage my anxiety. Above all this, one of the best things about being a dental hygienist whenever you have anxiety is that, for one, most people are scared of you to begin with. So that alone helps you relax because they're probably way more stressed out than you are. And number two, you always have this wonderful, beautiful mask that you get to wear over your face. So if your face turns beet red, no one knows it but you. And it's wonderful and I love it and it's so freaking helpful. So I hope this gave you guys like a little bit of insight on how I kind of help manage my anxiety while I'm working as a dental hygienist. And just be kind to yourself. Always remember to take good care of yourself. And at the end of the day, you are human just like every other person. Nothing is ever going to be perfect and that's okay. If you have anxiety as well and you are working as a dental hygienist or just any other profession in general, please let me know the tips that you have to help manage your anxiety while you are at work. I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please let me know by hitting the like button down below. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that red subscribe button, and I will see you guys in my next video.